Dave, Find Out, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. She's a burnout prevention specialist, generation researcher, TEDx and international keynote speaker, no other than Miss Kristen Donnelly.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Welcome, Miss Kristen on Abstract Essay. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Sure. My name is Dr. Kristen Donnelly. I operate out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My passion in life is to help people live life on their terms and not the terms given to them by society as best that they can. I focus a lot on burnout education and burnout research with my research partner, Dr. Erin Hinson. And our contention is that burnout is actually a cultural problem, not an individual one. And so all of the individual solutions out there that place blame on people don't actually really work. So that's kind of how I spend my days is thinking about that and researching that.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Kristen. Or I will call you Dr. Kristen. Thank you. So today let's talk about the world burnout. So tell us, let's start with the basics of our audience. What exactly frequency about burning?
I mean, it's hard. I'll say this. There's lots of statistics about, how often people burn out in different countries, and those are all true, and my guess is they're all low because it is often hard for people who are burned out to recognize that they are burned out. So burnout at its very core is kind of a limit of yourself. So whether that's your emotional capacity, whether that is your, you know, presence with friends and family, whether that's your work ethic, it's a limit of something that you can't really get out of yourself. And it's a limit because it is the kind of end game of the stress cycle. We all have it in our bodies. It's the fight, flight, or fight kind of thing, fight, flight, or freeze thing. If we stay in that stress cycle for too long, that stress cycle like rotates us into a shrinking of ourselves. And then that is what burnout is.
Burnout indeed. So, what is the subtle early warning signal people often miss or rationalize away beyond I'm tired?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's tired, whether they're burned out or not. I,
Hmm.
I think I think a major one is disconnection. So if you're feeling like you don't really know why you're doing your work, beyond it. So let me say this.
Hmm.
Women burn out more at the office and men burn out more at home.
Yes.
So men that are listening to this, if you are disconnected from your kids, from your spouse, if you don't really care, if your whole goal every night is just to zone out and not engage with those around you, you're probably burned out or on your way there. And for women, if you are forcing yourselves to be excited about a project, if you can't connect with your colleagues that maybe at one point you were able to connect with no problem, if at one point you really liked your job and now you really don't, but like nothing at work has changed. So you don't really
Hmm.
know why you're not happy. You just don't feel happy. Those are some warning signs. Maybe you're burned out in caregiving and, you're having a really hard time emotionally connecting to whoever you're caring for, be it a parent or a child, burned out in a volunteer job. You just actually don't care anymore. So, like, that disconnection is a really big one. By the time you get to like, I can't get out of bed, gut wrenching fatigue, that's when depression has entered the picture as well. And that becomes a little bit more of a layered thing. I would say the really kind of pay attention to things that you used to really care about that now you absolutely cannot bring yourself to. That's a pretty clear early warning sign.
Dr. Kristen, why is it burnout often misdiagnosed as a personal failing? Is it a systemic or a workplace design failure?
We have a belief here in the United States, we have a belief
Mm-hmm.
that in order to be a good person, you have to work really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And that is part of the foundations of the United States. I argue all the time that the actual founding documents is not the Declaration. It's much earlier than that. It's the Puritan settlement documents of the 1600s.
Mm-hmm.
And so because we established that in order to be a good person, you have to work really hard, you have to do it all alone, and rest is for when you're dead. We set up this system that marries pretty well with the form of capitalism that exists here in the States. And they kind of went hand in hand. So, in order to be a really good person, in order to be a good person and get the American dream, you had to be a really hard worker. Now, we've exported that kind of everywhere. And we've also, a lot of folks who come here as first or second generation immigrants, they have to buy into that. They need to, because they need to get a foothold and they need to establish their families, they need to do all of that. And so because we've exported it everywhere, or we demand it of anyone who comes, whether you're born here or not, whether you came willingly or didn't, um, it's just not an individual failing anywhere. Now, like maybe, there's other things that are. There's other things that aren't great, but burnout certainly isn't, because the lie that we're all trying to live under is that hard work makes you a good person. And we usually believe that hard work is just more work.
Mm-hmm.
And so more work. And then we get to a certain point in which, everybody underneath us is burning out. So we're doing okay, but we're burning out everybody in the downline underneath us. So burnout, success on the planet requires burnout, yours or someone else's, is one of the things that we say. And so because of that, you can't bubble bath your way out of burnout. You have to understand that at any point in time, there is a cultural predisposition to being burned out. And so guarding against that is how one prevents burnout.
Beyond sheer workload, Dr. Kristen, what are the most potent organizational drivers of burnout?
Anytime an organization values profit more than it values their people at a disproportionate level,
Hmm.
that's a driver for burnout. I own a company. And one of the things that I own, our parent company that I work for, I co own it with my brother. And one of the things that we are always making sure we're holding is a tension between people and profit all the time. And there's give and take, but at the basis, we do that. The other thing is, any organization that does not value the dignity of its employees, that expects loyalty from them without returning loyalty to them, those are all burnout drivers.
So how have hybrid remote work models and always on technology reshaped the burnout landscape? Have they created a new avenue for recovery or a new traps for overwork?
I certainly think it's created new traps more than it's created new paths to recovery.
Mm.
Um, for the simple fact that I don't think we figured out how to have the conversation around remote work actually frequently being more work. And not having the boundaries. I mean, we need to remember too that, like, as a planet, we're only about 4 years into this new, like, we've been going to offices for a long time, 50, 60, 70 years in some cases. We've only been doing this for like 5. So we're still figuring it out. We're still kind of, I don't know, muddling our way through. But I would say for sure, without a lot of intentionality on behalf of both the organization and the employee, there is absolutely so many frequent causes for burnout. I think lots of people burned out during lockdowns, and we just have never stopped being burned out. We just kind of got out of it and got on with our lives, and that's not been helpful either. And I think that one of the real reasons that remote work can foster burnout is that no one is present in their lives to check in on them from the organization. When you're physically present with other people, the signs are easier to see, and the kind of way. So I think that's a big one. The other one is a real lack of boundaries around technology. a real lack of a clear communication policy around when work happens and when work doesn't happen. There's often not a separation of devices. So people are supposed to use their phone for personal and business. That's a problem. So all of that is the real concern.
Dr. Kristen, for high achievers, their drive is so often rewarded until it's not. How does the identity overlay tied to a performance create the perfect internal conditions for burnout?
Oh man, what a question. So I can speak for myself as somebody who perceives myself as a high achiever. Others might not, but I perceive myself as one. And I know for me the internal drive was constantly, if I finish this next project, if I prove myself this next time, I can stop. It will be enough. It will be enough. And I'll finally have felt like I'm enough. And that's just not going to happen if you're measuring all of that by external forces. And so that is a major driver for burnout. And I one of the things I've been seeing a lot in in stuff that I read and playing around with is the idea that burnout doesn't always come from tasks. A lot of times it can come from expected results, like expectations. So I work a lot of hours and I work a lot of time of my day. But I know the difference in my body between burnout and what I'm feeling right now, which is hyper focus and getting really excited about something. So now the motivation is myself, the motivation is finishing this project, the motivation is accountability. Before, the motivation was like desperate needs to be enough, desperate needs to be worth something, desperate need to be recognized, desperate need to be all of that. And if high achievers are honest with themselves, we're often more in this category than this one without a lot of intentionality. And so I think that it's what you are striving for, doing all the work for, that can be just as much of a burnout indicator as how much you're doing. Scientists, for instance, athletes, actresses, actors and actresses, dancers, a lot of people that work a lot of hours that maybe outsiders would look at that and be like, oh my God, they're so burned out. Like, no, they're not. They work a lot of hours, but that's not burnout. They work a lot of hours to a different goal to a different goal than to one that would lead them to bone crushing exhaustion. Because the one where they're working towards a healthy goal, the mark is routine that they need, right? Whereas over here, when you are making up goals in a certain way and holding yourself accountable to things that aren't necessarily within your control, things can get a little bit messier.
Individual strategies and beyond the bubble bath, Dr. Kristen, what does a true non negotiable recovery look like on a daily and weekly basis? How is it different from a passive distraction?
It's going to look different for everybody, but our biggest tips are to make sure that you get enough sleep, make sure you're doing things that bring you joy and that you're having fun, do things that kind of remind you that your place in the universe is tiny, even though you are beloved, that the tides will come in without you, we promise, and spend time with people that matter. And those kind of cultivate tiny practices around those four categories. And that's what recovery can look like. Beyond that, it's really different for every person because everybody's burnout is different and everybody's circumstances are different. I don't have children or pets or plants. I just keep myself alive. My husband is self sufficient and can mind himself. So my recovery looked very different from my friends who had multiple dogs and a toddler. Everything needs to work for you, for best for you.
Hmm. The advice to set boundaries is common but hard. What is a practical, scripted way to set work a boundary and feels professional and sustainable? Dr. Kristen.
Well, we unpack this a lot more in both of our books on burnout, both the one that's as I talk here in January, early January 26th, the one that's already out, Culture of Burnout, and then the one that's coming out, which is leading through a culture of burnout. We go into this a lot deeper because this is a very common question. But what I will say is the very first step is to decide why you want the boundary,
Mm-hmm.
what you're willing to negotiate in and out of it. If you go into a circumstance, especially with an employer, and you say this is my boundary, regardless, that might be okay, and that also might be something that needs negotiation depending on your role, depending on whatnot. And also remember that a boundary is entirely about how you will behave in a situation. It is not about you controlling the behaviors of other people. It's not at all. So figure out how you will behave. If you are asked to work or take a call at 10 p.m., far outside of your work hours, how will you react to that request? It is not I'm going to draw a boundary so they never ask me that. No, you're drawing a boundary to say how you will react if and or when they ask you that question. So that would be the first thing I would think. And also, there's a lot of talk about boundaries right now that does not hold into account our role as people in society. So be honest with yourself. Is this a boundary that you're drawing that really you could push yourself a little bit and you don't need to draw it right now? Maybe it is. Maybe it's a firm boundary you need to draw. But maybe also you can soften that boundary. You can make it a little fuzzier so that you could build resilience or learn a new skill or all these kind of things. There's a lot of talk on the internet right now about building boundaries entirely out of fear, and that is not always appropriate.
Well, Dr. Kristen, I'm inviting you to please do come over to my book 101 review and let's talk about the culture of burnout. Please do come over. And looking at long term career sustainability, how might we need to redefine success to include vitality and purpose, not just output and title?
Well, I mean, you have to. And the how is,
The how.
we get accused a lot of not giving people answers because our answers are always it depends on you.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron and I are both PhDs in social science, and we do presentations together, and we talk to a lot of people together about it. And our thing is always, I understand that you want a prescription. I completely respect that, but that's what's gotten you here. You've tried to follow the prescription for other people, and you need to figure out the one for you. And so you have to define success for you. And it is entirely possible that you need the clarity of a therapist or a career coach or a mentor to get you there. For me, success is not a material financial situation. For me, success is a lot more about impact, which is harder to measure and therefore harder to kind of rest in and take care of myself around. But it is real. It is real. That's success for me, is impact. That's not the case for a lot of people. For a lot of people, success is making sure that they can pay for their kids to go to college. Success is making sure that their house is paid off by the time they're 40. There's lots of different versions of success. There's different markers. There's different ways to get there. There's different how you get there and how long you get there, how long it takes. Also, because all of us are different. People with hypomania might, focus on one project for 10 years and then that success. And then when they're done, they've got to look around and decide what success is next.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of it. The other thing is that I could have a marker of success and say, I am going to achieve this position, this title. Then something happens and I'm not in that industry anymore. And so it's not that success was achieved, it's that success was eliminated. How do I do it in the next one? And so that's a complicated question, and a lot of people treat it like a simple answer, a prescriptive answer. And it's not. It's simply not. Because it's also something that can evolve over time. If you had asked me at 19 what success looked like, it's very different than asking me now at 42.
Dr. Kristen, what are the effective digital hygiene practices to combat the always on expectation and reclaim a cognitive space?
Man, um, just such a great question. There's a lot of data right now out there on
Hmm.
how important this is. That we have to move away from screens. We have to embrace an analog experience. We just wrote about this in our newsletter. The New York Times covered it this week as well. That we need to rebalance back to analog experiences. We need to read physical books. We need to subscribe to physical newspapers. We need to go physically outside of the house, all those kind of things. And so I think a first step is recognizing that you want to do it, that digital hygiene is something that is important to you. Because if it's important to you, you will do little things to make it happen. Maybe you're listening to this and you're like, I am perfectly fine spending
Mm-hmm.
24/7 on my phone. Amazing. Have fun. If you there's lots of science that can tell me that that's bad for you, but we all make choices. So, um, if you want to make this shift, you'll find ways to do it. There's devices out there. Brick is a really popular one, that essentially makes your phone a dumb phone for a little while. So, like, you're out and about and you're with friends, and you want, for that hour you're eating dinner with them, you want that phone to just be a phone and not
Mm-hmm.
anything else. You place this device on top of it and it turns it into a dumb phone instead of a smartphone. So there's that. There's also taking timed breaks. My partner, again, Erin, my best friend and partner, she doesn't really check her phone on Sundays. That's her detox day. Um, if I need her for any, like, that's urgent, I will call her and she will answer the phone. But she doesn't check social media at all. She doesn't check WhatsApp. She doesn't check those things. And we all know it was clearly communicated. If you need Erin on a weekend and it's very, very urgent, you have to call her. And that would be fine. I know other folks that kind of do this with families, like phones live downstairs, not in bedrooms. So at night, bedrooms are for sleeping, not for surfing. There's kind of all that stuff. So figure out the thing that is most problematic to you. So if doom scrolling is the most problematic, then come up with another thing to do with your hands. So physical crafts, crochet, knitting, cross stitch, pottery, man, like, start playing video games.
Mm-hmm.
Things that occupy your hands will help you stop doom scrolling. If your main thing is that you can't stop talking to people, commit to 20 minutes a day where you turn off your phone. Start there. When that's not terrifying and uncomfortable, stretch it a little bit more. Figure, like, whatever your thing is, there is a first step for that thing. So for me, it was doom scrolling. Oh, for sure. For sure. And definitely on Twitter. So I took up crochet. And I also play video games. So both of those things at night are a lot more prevalent to me than doom scrolling, but I still get sucked back in. Like, if a friend of mine, we're live texting a hockey game back and forth, if she hasn't responded in a couple seconds and I'm like, oh, let me go check Twitter. Like, no, I don't need to do that. I can just patiently wait for Laura to text back. So, but it's breaking a habit that got accidentally formed. And breaking that kind of habit takes a lot of intention. You're gonna screw up. You're gonna have bad days. You're gonna not have that priority that day. Something's gonna happen in the world that you do really feel like you need to be connected to. All of that happens. We then just have to decide and make the commitment and do all of that to get back on our path towards a much more balanced life between analog and digital.
Dr. Kristen, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in third season, and my book 101 review in sixth season this year, comedy 101 third season, and my food 101 in sixth season as well, geography 101, love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 on fourth season, science 101, sex 101. It is a third season of my baby podcast, trivia 101, law 101, mental health 101, motivation 101, entrepreneurship 101, and of course, Bible verses 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Dr. Kristen, ultimately, is the solution to burnout epidemic about building tougher individuals or building healthier systems? Where should our primary focus be?
When you build people who live in balance will demand systems that function in balance. And those people will be in charge of things. Those people will be all of that kind of stuff. So I say you start with yourself. It's the only thing you can control. You can't control systems. You can't control any of that. You can control how you go to bed every night. You can control structuring joy into your existence. You can control making sure you connect with people who matter and make sense to you and who know you, not the performance you put on most of the time, because we all do it, but who know you to your core. Those are decisions you can make that you have power over. And that's the other thing. Burnout takes your power from you. You feel completely powerless. So we want to encourage you to take tiny bits of your power back. As we do that, systems will change. Because disruptors are always people with different behaviors and different ideas. And so by focusing on yourself, you'll disrupt the system, which sounds very strange, and not in a selfish way. But again, you focus on what you can control and you don't panic about what you can't.
Dr. Kristen Donnelly, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Again, I'm inviting you to please do come over to my book 101 review and let's talk about the culture of burnout. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now, most especially your upcoming book?
Love to. It's yeah. Thanks for having me. And lots of places to find the book. Cultureofburnout.com is another great one. In order to get on our newsletter as well and hear everything about the upcoming new version of the Culture of Burnout, which will focus on leadership. And we're very excited to get it out in the world.
Yes, leadership indeed. So, Dr. Kristen, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Daniel.
Modicom people, see you soon.